The former Associate Deputy Attorney General who was dropped from the Russian investigation over that apparent conflict of interest. Well, he will testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee on Monday. He is Bruce Orr. You know, he was a high-ranking Department of Justice official who was demoted after revelations he had undisclosed meetings with Fusion GPS. You know, that's the firm behind the salacious and unverified dossier on then-candidate Donald Trump. Then we learned that Mr. Orr's wife, Nellie, there on the right, well, she had worked at Fusion GPS on, guess what, the Trump opposition research during the campaign season. Well, meantime, on Tuesday, Christopher Steele himself, the author of the dossier, well, he's going to testify before the committee. Steele and Orr, it is said, they both met as part of this investigation, but critics, as you know, say the dossier was trumped up to make a case against the president during the campaign. And all this comes as there are even more revelations coming to light about the investigators. Well, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein says the Mueller investigation is credible and has no evidence of bias. A lot of critics and Republicans saying far from it. Joining us now is the Fox News legal analyst Mercedes Colwin, defense attorney David Bruno. Mercedes, let me start with you.
Sure.
You know, Rosenstein, we saw him testifying, defending Mueller. He says It's okay. Now you got all these emails and all these apparent conflict of interests. So, frankly, how could he say that?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of semblance of impropriety. There is really no concrete evidence that there is actual conflict, but there's certainly a semblance of it because, for one, you've got Orr, whose wife is part of Fusion GPS. That's all going to be covered under the spousal privilege, so any communication between the two, we'll never know. And then, secondly, you have this whole issue as to whether the deputy had met with Steele, what was the discussions that were done with Steele, what was the discussions with GPS. So all of this starts to become more sort of, there's something stinks in Denmark.
Well,
it becomes much more problematic. And frankly, in order to just absolve some of these semblance of improprieties, bring in a special prosecutor to go and go through these issues.
Let me bring back to you to the spousal privilege. Can you explain that? So in other words, Orr, even though he's a Department of Justice official, very high ranking, and his wife is working on GPS, and he happens to be the guy to get in touch with Christopher Steele, according to the reports. They can't get it out of him?
No, that's a great point. No, Eric, they cannot have spouses testifying against the spouse. So that is covered by the spousal privilege. You will not get one spouse to testify against the other.
Can he talk about the dossier? Can he talk about what he did with Steele? Can he talk about his motivations or if there are any bias in this sort of thing?
They can exercise spousal privilege and not be required to testify against each other.
Wow. Well, David, what about that?
Yeah, they can. They can't be compelled to testify against each other. However, they could voluntarily waive that privilege. So if they want to, they can.
What do you think they'll do?
The public right now is getting a sneak peek into how the feds put together cases. And we're seeing this in various different ways. We're seeing this with cooperating witnesses, i.e. Michael Flynn and George Papadopoulos. We're seeing that the feds do pay witnesses, potentially with Christopher Steele and the dossier. And we're seeing this overlapping of things. I mean, right now, this Hillary Clinton investigation, which is being reviewed by the Inspector General, is starting to bleed into this Russian interference investigation. And we saw it with the agent Strzok text messages. That was discovered by the Inspector General, and it was brought to Mueller's attention, and he had to take Strzok off the team. And what we've seen is Strzok has his hand in basically everything. It looks like he was a part of the Hillary Clinton interview. He was a part of the Uma Abedin interview. He was a part of striking the language of gross negligence in the Mueller initial announcement, which is critical because gross negligence is required in the federal statute of mishandling of classified information.
So, David, let me stop you right there. You just look at a laundry list of basically, he's the point man on the Hillary Clinton email investigation.
Right.
And he has these emails with Lisa Page, who allegedly is having an affair with. You know, they're calling Trump during a candidate an idiot. They're calling him a name I can't say here on TV. They're saying a Trump presidency would be terrifying. They say Hillary Clinton has to win, and he's the guy who's in charge of the email investigation, who, as you say, allegedly waters down the description so it can't be prosecuted. And also, this at the same time, the Department of Justice under Loretta Lynch
Yep.
She supposedly tells Comey, call it a matter, not an investigation.
And the tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton.
What does this look like to you?
It's starting to pile up. And we have an Inspector General report coming out shortly. They are reviewing the Hillary Clinton investigation. That will be telling. Because like you said, Rod Rosenstein was on the Hill. He was testifying. He was being asked a lot of these very difficult questions about conflict of interest. And he was saying that this report is expected to be coming out soon. It should be interesting.
All right, so Mercedes, as David says, it's piling up. What do you get when you get a pile? What do we have?
A lot of things, but certainly some of this can be cured. Bring in another special prosecutor to look at this. I mean, this is what's been happening. Every week we start to see that there are other problems in the investigation. It starts to get unearthed. It starts to measure up. It starts to really, there's so much scrutiny on this investigation. All eyes are on it.
But, you know, others say that, look, they're professional prosecutors. Right. They're professional investigators. They tell us when we have jury duty, leave your preconceived notions and biases at the courthouse door, that even though that they think Trump, is terrible, that they're objectively and appropriately and professionally handling the investigation.
Well, with respect to Strzok and Page, they were also very critical of others in the Obama administration. So it goes both ways. They could, first of all, we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg here. There's so many text messages. There are thousands upon thousands of them. We'll have to see as it continues to get unearthed as to what they say.
Yeah, he also called Bernie Sanders, Senator, an idiot. So he's got both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders.
He doesn't like anyone.
He doesn't like anyone, really.
Controversy. Meanwhile, quickly, finally, Lisa Bloom, who's a well-known attorney, apparently representing two of the Trump accusers, that reports say she sought money for them. I mean, money for these accusers. Mercedes, what does that mean to you? And is that wrong?
Final analysis in all of this, these accusations have to be delved into. The truth has to come up. Whether there's payment, non-payment, whatever the issue is, it has to be focused. It has to be, is there any truth to these accusations? Whomever are bringing these accusations, it's really about due process.
David, let me read you her tweet. She says, quote, "Do not let the right wing undermine the brave Trump accusers. Not today, not ever. I stand with them." So is this report of payments a lot to do about nothing, or, you know, what?
No. I think it should be looked at, absolutely, because I think the most problematic aspect of this is the timing of it. Because there was an offer of $750,000 to be paid to somebody to come forward 2 days prior to the presidential election. And that money was coming from donors. And we do not know where that money was coming from. She hasn't said. She said it wasn't from the Hillary Clinton campaign. However, it's interesting that that amount of money was being provided and possibly for someone to come out.
Now, it's absolutely critical that we all say the same thing. One is that there's no evidence whatsoever that any of these women were paid to lie. That is such a critical issue that we have to make sure that we hit that home, because obviously if Lisa Bloom, if there's any evidence of that, then there can be significant issues against Lisa Bloom. But there's absolutely no evidence that she had paid any of these individuals to come forward and lie.
That's exactly what Lisa Bloom is saying, just that. She is saying, despite any monetary issue, these women are telling the truth. She says, and she also says, David, that's the only thing that counts.
Absolutely. There's a Hill report.
We're all in agreement.
There's a Hill report, and then Lisa Bloom has given a statement. So if anyone's going to look at this, they need to read both of them. No doubt about that.
Exactly.
Would this be something that would be investigated? I mean, you got one thing that strikes me is you got money going on all over the place. You got someone paying for the dossier, and we don't know exactly who that is. They say it's the DNC, and the top honchos go, well, we don't know where the money is.
Well, the question that needs to be answered is, where's the money coming from? Right? She said they were coming from donors. So if this has anything to do with the presidential campaign, that needs to be looked at. Absolutely.
Mercedes, last word.
Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going full circle here. A lot of these issues have to be investigated, whether we're talking about the dossier and the Russian investigation or this issue with Lisa Bloom. It really goes down to what's the truth. We have to delve deeper into it.
Yep, absolutely. Mercedes and David, thank you for your insight and analysis.
Take care,
Thank you so much.
Of course.